have subscribed or to you, or I follow you on Twitter. It creates a much more personal relationship, and it increases the odds of getting coverage or at least an email response dramatically, right? Because it's hard to ignore someone who's a fan, right? It just is. So become a fan. Now, you're going to have to do that dozens of times. So it's work, right? It's work. But this is the high payoff work we're talking about, right? Because if you get someone in the media to write about you, they can help you reach thousands of people. Okay, let's talk about social media. Oh, let me go back. I need to cover a couple of other things. There are a couple of etiquette things that we need to be sure of when we're sending a press release. News organizations are notoriously afraid of viruses, right? So they don't send any attachments. A few of you may even have attachments embedded in your signature. That can get you filtered out. I would discourage you from incorporating your photo or your logo into your email for just that reason. Even though it looks clever, people who are hyper afraid of attachments may filter out your email and it may never get there. So what you want to do is send the press release and your message all in the body of the email and not as an attachment. You also don't want to attach pictures, but pictures are so helpful. So you want to tell them you have pictures available. You may provide a link to a Dropbox or just a place on the web where they can find a photo that they can use. But they may be nervous about links too, so be sure to tell them that you have photos available and you'll send them if they want. And then if they invite you to send an email by an send a picture as an attachment, you certainly can and should at that point. Yes?
We use Constant Contact for our e-newsletters, and when we don't really able to do other emails, we started using that because our media contacts are in constant contact as well. We have a media group. I think that format, because it does have included just inherently in that our logo and other things.
Yeah. I would go back to the issue there is that you don't want to fall into the temptation of sending a long list of people, kind of a form letter. The worst form letter I ever got, I got just a couple of weeks ago. It said, "Dear, fill in name here." I loved your article about fill in title of article here. On fill in name of publication here. Those form letters people get to recognize really quickly, and so the more personal you can make it feel, the far more effective it will be. That said, as you develop a mature list and you have relationships with some people, it may make sense to just have a list of the 20 or 30 people who are covering you and send them stuff. Constant contact is a reasonable way to do that. I wouldn't discourage it, but they will be nervous about attachments, so I'd still put all the content in the body of the email.
AWeber does the plain text, and I think you can subscribe to one or the other depending on your preference.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that any of them are the same.
Yeah. So let's talk now about social media. The social media really is the fun part of, and the easy part of the campaign. But you don't want to omit it. As much as I've emphasized all of the other things, I was very surprised. I was involved with a crowdfunding campaign recently, and I was surprised at how little social media they were producing. It was like, I realized all of this other stuff is important. You got to have a great party, and they did, and you got to have, but they weren't tweeting, they weren't posting on Facebook. You got to do it every single day. You can't presume that someone else is going to talk about you for you. You've got to be producing that content. So you've got to help your partners and your boosters. You've got to have a central person kind of creating the daily blog or the daily posts, and you can send out an email every day, say, share this post, or follow us and retweet us. and retweet, repost on Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. So you've got a place where it originates. Yeah.
Sorry, you may have covered this if I stepped out. Do you have a timeline of how soon how many days ahead the tweeting Facebook should start?
It doesn't need to start much in advance, because until you can provide a link to where they can give money, it's hard to build anything. So that's why all of that happens kind of in that ground war effort, is primarily geared toward getting that money before you start. And then the social media is going to pick up when you start and then go forward. You can still use email, and you should, and you can still make phone calls, and you should. That ground war can continue until the end of the campaign. But the air war, this air attack, this traditional media and the social media really won't get momentum until the campaign is up. You can do a little bit before, but it really won't be until it's up and going.
I guess that was one of my critiques last year of Love Utah, Give Utah. Although it was really effective, I felt like I was feeling fatigued.
Yes.
Let alone our donors by the time, and so it's subjective feedback.
Yeah.
It just seemed like it needed to be tighter.
Yeah.
In terms of what we communicate to our donors, not the work we do behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got to be careful with how you reach. The purpose of social media isn't to reach the people that you know and love and who love you. The social media is principally about getting them to reach out and beyond, right? You want to be encouraging them to share with their friends so that you get the amplification and you're bringing in new donors. But you really need to use the people who love you and are close to you already to accomplish that, because if you are trying to reach new people and not including in your campaign effort the people who already support you, you won't get the amplification to reach the new people, right? Clever hashtags and whatever social media strategy you're using, if you don't engage the people who already know and love you, you won't reach the people who don't. It's just the nature of social media, right? If you get 100 people retweeting you, you can reach tens of thousands of people, potentially. So you need to be doing social media every single day. Yes?
You just said that every single day, but I'm sitting here thinking, I used to be emailing tons of people all the time. And when I finally jumped onto Facebook in 2010, it was just blowing up. But now it just seems like they're dead. What's the thought on that? Is it happening? Is it really?
Well, I think a lot of the cool people have moved to Instagram. So you need to be wherever you are. You need to be posting. I think what's happening on Facebook is a little bit of etiquette is developing that's taking some of the fun out of it, but there is a little bit less of sharing inappropriate behavior. That's probably a good thing, but seeing people, talking about their gross personal stuff was probably creating some of the activity. But anyway, I think Facebook is great. You need to be there. There are over 1 billion people on Facebook. You need to be on Facebook every day. Twitter is great. You should be there. LinkedIn is great. That's where the money is. Google Plus is great because Google favors Google in its search results. So you need to be engaging with people there. Wherever you have an audience, post and share about your campaign. If you're active on Pinterest, go there. If you're active on Instagram, go there. If you're on Foursquare, go there. Make sure you're using wherever you are as a platform, because if you've got friends and family there, friends and followers, go there. With the exception of maybe Google+, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, I wouldn't create a new account anywhere in order to reach people, because there aren't enough people on any of the other platforms to make it really worthwhile trying to build it during your crowdfunding campaign. If you don't have a Facebook page, if you don't have a Twitter feed, now and you're launching a crowdfunding campaign, use this as an excuse to help build those things, because you'll want those things in the long run. They're just too big not to be there. So one of the things that I want to make sure that you do on your personal feeds, right, during a crowdfunding campaign, and a lot of what we're talking about really is what's going on at the personal level, not the organizational level. But you want to continue posting what you've always posted. So if you get up every morning and post a picture of yourself with bed hair, then get up in the morning and post a picture of yourself with bed hair. Still do that. If you like to take a picture of your breakfast and share that with everyone, do that. If you like posting pictures, or if you like posting links to articles from the Harvard Business Review, do that. Whatever you normally do, continue to do. But in addition, let's post about the campaign every single day. Now, I want to talk about some good and bad posts. It's tempting to say, woohoo, we raised $5,000. Party time. Well, there are a couple of problems with that kind of messaging. One is when you say we raised, you're taking credit for what someone else did. You want to probably push that around the other way. Say you donated, you gave, you got us to, you did it. You want to make sure the message is outbound and supportive of, and ultimately expresses gratitude to your friends, fans, and followers who are supporting your campaign. You also want to make sure that you bring it back quickly to the mission. In fact, I used to think you shouldn't even post updates about your progress. I've since repented of that. People do want to support a winning campaign. They want to know you're raising a lot of money. They want to know you're successful. So you should provide updates about your progress as you reach new milestones and as the clock ticks by. Make sure people understand that you're making progress. But you need to also bring it back to the cause. Bring it back to the purpose so that people understand you're raising money to make a difference in the world. This isn't about the money, it's about the mission. Remember that with every tweet, and then thank people. You want to make sure that in every single message you're posting that you are expressing appreciation. Again, you can't thank people enough. And people that haven't given, I think sometimes as we write these kinds of posts, we're thinking, well, we want more people to donate, and I don't want to thank someone who didn't donate. Well, for crying out loud. What is really the problem if we thank someone who hasn't donated yet? What's going to happen? They're going to feel just a twinge of guilt that you said thank you and they hadn't done anything yet. So what are they going to do? They're going to go give, right? So thank you, thank you, thank you. That works. Keep it up. Now, I want to we've got about 15 minutes here, maybe 20 minutes. We can go through and actually kind of workshop a campaign a little bit and go through these 4 processes together a little bit. Who would like to come up here? Okay, come on up here, Rebecca. Okay. We're going to do this together. So you're with Women
of the World.
Women of the World.
Yeah.
And remind me what that's about.
Okay, so we are set up with refugee women to help them kind of one-on-one with whatever it is that will improve their life.
So it's a local effort right here in Utah to help refugees. We've got about, 15,000 refugees in Utah? 50,000.
Yeah, 35,000 of them is women and children, and 98% of them, they live in Salt Lake.
Yeah, this is a huge problem that many of us are rather oblivious of. So wonderful, wonderful campaign.
So it's like a personal advocacy, so you're just kind of one-on-one with them.
Okay, so the first thing I want to do is let's have this group help us with an assessment.
Okay.
So the first thing in his face. Now, do you think there are any cute refugee women or families or children that you could get that could help us with the campaign?
Oh, for sure. They're all adorable.
So we have adorable children right here in Utah that are in desperate need, right? So do you think, how would you score that? Is that like a 5? Yeah, I think we got a 5 on our face. So the next element is urgency. Now, urgency we all struggle with that a little bit. So tell us a little bit about the urgency, what's going on with the refugees, and how would you think about that?
Okay, so it's an ongoing issue. I mean, it's been going on and it's going to go on forever. But if you look at the urgency of one specific need for one specific family, I helped a family the other day who needed a bunch of stuff done because pest control was coming to their apartment and you needed to do all this stuff beforehand.
Yeah.
They really needed this service to come.
Yeah.
And so the urgency right then was me calling every single person I know to say, can you please come to this house right now and
Yeah.
help me?
Right.
And help me right now. You know, and so it's kind of difficult to gauge because it's certainly an ongoing problem, but there are some urgencies
Very acute,
today.
very acute needs. So we're probably, yes.
Can I maybe address, because it is long-term and it could feel overwhelming, maybe you talk about what services or what's these refugees are missing out on. Jobs, providing for their family, food. Those are all tangible, urgent things that also address the long-term, but when they arrive in Utah, they have one piece of clothing.
Yeah.
Right? And so you could address that to create the urgency for the campaign.
Well, and I kept thinking over and over again as we were talking about urgency, because that seems to be, you know, one that we ourselves scored kind of low because it is an ongoing problem. But I think that's our job as volunteers and the people who are working on this is to create the urgency.
Yeah. So we probably have natively something like what? Do you think is it a 2 or a 3? What do you think?
Well, I mean, from what
Is it a 4? 3? 3?
I think from
2?
what I've witnessed, I could definitely make it a 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you think it's a 6.
I could make
but
it a 100.
Does
Yes.
it help if we talk about South Sudan or Syria and address? Like,
yes, because those are, if you have refugees coming in right now, that gives you urgency. If you have, for instance, if you are doing the campaign around a time when you are bringing in 300 new refugees or 12 new families, that gives you urgency. So you could probably push up to the 4 or 5 range at those moments. If they've been here for 6 months and they have apartments, and then it's harder to score it quite that high.
Well, I think with the right events and messaging, you know, you can keep it
Yeah.
up there.
And then what helps is being able to tie it into a national story that everyone's aware of. So it'll, you know, if you are messaging Syria, you know, the refugees coming in from there, you're piggybacking on things that people already know about, which gives you a little more
Oh, yeah.
credibility and relevance.
Yeah, there's no question that if you can tie into that, the more directly, you can potentially get to a 5 if you are, you know, bringing in new refugees and you're trying to figure out how you're going to outfit and equip them and settle them in the Utah environment. If they've been here for a while, that fades, but
But the thing is, you know, this is a good point. One thing is we want to understand that there's a resettlement agencies in here. They're the one they've been paid to bring those refugees in here.
Right.
But we are taking those women that are not being helped or their need is underfunded, you know, something is like that. So
Right.
I don't know how.
yes, you had one thought here. We got to move this along a little bit, but it's all right. This is good discussion.
I'm with the Boys and Girls Clubs, and we have many of our club kids are refugee kids. And so I think sometimes maybe you can create the urgency. Kind of what you were saying is about talking about what is immediately happening to them, affecting them today. What are they not getting? Like today, there's a kid not in school because he's out at the doctor's appointment with his grandmother because she doesn't speak English. So he's not
Yeah.
in school because of that problem. So if you can say
Yeah.
what is happening today or right now and how are they affected, that might create some better urgency.
You're right. That certainly is, that messaging is going to help.
There is a lot of
Messaging is going to help.
urgency to say yes.
But this discussion highlights the problem that most of us in this room face with crowdfunding, and that is there oftentimes isn't a sense of urgency because the problem has been around a long time. So let's move on. Let's say that we'll be generous and give this one a 4. So then the next one would be geography, right? Did I skip one? Politics. Politics first before. So what do you think? What's your experience? Are people supportive of the refugee initiative, or do you run into
Human rights is being, they're losing their human rights.
so the human rights is a strong message, very strong message. Are there political challenges here that I'm not thinking through?
Immigration.
Immigration, yes.
People often
yeah,
tie it to
yeah.
immigration.
Yes, so some people don't like immigration. You're right. So there are some people that are going to, so it's probably a 4. Probably a 4. Are we okay with 4 on that? Okay. So next would be geography. And I think you're really strong there because we're talking about people in the local community. We're not talking about helping Syrians in Syria. We're talking about helping Syrians in Utah. That works for our local community. So you probably give you a 5 on the geography. Then the community of interest. What about a community of interest? What are the communities that you're tying into, and how effectively is that working?
You know, I'm kind of new, so, you know, what have we done in the past?
I'll tell you, my kids go to school with a lot of refugee kids at Cottonwood High.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a perfect group to ask for a $10 donation. And that school is very good at crowdfunding because my kids are sitting next to refugee kids that they've become friends with.
Sure.
And all of them do $10 charges on their parents' cell phone bills. I'm one of the parents.
They're very generous with your money.
43% kids on the poverty side at Cottonwood High, and then there's the other kids. And so, you know, I think sometimes we forget that crowdfunding also works really well at that $10 gift at a lower level, an age level. And
Right.
so, you know, I just speak from a personal experience.
No, that's a great tip. Is all these students are in schools scattered all around the state, so those schools can provide a community. If we tie them in directly, we can tap into those communities.
A lot with those schools to go and help with the, you know, either interpreting or to pass the word for them and everything, but I never did ask the school to do it.
Yeah, so it's an interesting possibility. So I would say you probably have about a 4 on community
Yeah.
because of that potential with the school, and certainly, and you also have refugees who've been here a while who are now in a position to help the
Yes.
newer
Yes.
refugees. So that gives and other immigrants as well, right? That have a shared connection. You may not be a refugee, but you may feel a connection because you're immigrant. So there are some communities there. So maybe a 4 there. And then the project or event. Now, do you have a specific project in mind that you need money for?
We did actually like to show their beautiful costume, you know, the traditional clothes, because they've been, again, people that will say, joke about them and everything. So they wanted to go out and walk and to show them. So we did that,
see.
you know, we raised some money a couple of years ago. We don't have
Yeah.
the venue, we don't have this year, last year, so
Yeah.
we didn't do it.
But
The
that
other-
kind of an event that you...
and
Yeah.
Mother's Day. Mother's Day, they love to have a Mother's Day. Some women came in from Africa, they don't know it's a Mother's Day. So
Ah.
that's another one. International Women's Day, we need that, you know. So there's a lot of them events that will educate them and to make them happy.
Yeah.
But there's other things is like the workshop always we give.
Yeah. So I think there are some things there, but you need to create some sort of event tied to your crowdfunding campaign, and that can help give you the urgency. But you know, that cultural celebration can be a key part of that. But you probably need to do a little more work to raise that up to kind of that 5 level. You're probably at these levels talking about tapping into national events. You're probably in a 3 or a 4 range there. So.
And actually, one of them, just recently, I actually invite a lot of people to come to see it, is the event at the end of the year that women, they reach to their goals. One woman, she got award for finish her master degree. The other one, she just, learned how to drive, and the other one, she became an American citizen. So we recognize those women to encourage the other community, their community to reach to their goals within short time. So this is another thing.
I'd just like to offer a little partnership and invite your organization to put on something like that at the People's Market during the summer. We have a cultural celebration day, And it would be fantastic if your contacts could come and participate in that.
Well, that's great. Great idea. So overall, it sounds to me like you've got about a 24-point package right now, but you can see there are a couple of opportunities to raise that. You can see where you've got issues. Clearly messaging around urgency is going to be key. If you can find the right urgency message, that's going to bring you up. If you can find the right project or event to associate with your campaign, that can bring you up. And so you could get over kind of that 25, 26-point threshold, and that would get you into the range where really magic can happen. So now, as you think about your campaign, you've got to, think about your team. Let's think about that. What have you got in the way of a team? The three of you are here. Who else is involved with you in terms of other potential partners and other potential champions? Are there any?
We have a board with all various backgrounds.
Yeah, a board with various backgrounds, and then there's, besides Rebecca and I, 3 others on the sort of development team that are looking at using our crowdfunding, Love Utah, Give Utah, as sort of an introduction to the messaging
Right.
that we'll need for grants, and sort of, since it's not a one-time hits-all thing, like with a grant, social media, we can start to get into it, understand the best messaging from these constituent parts.
It sounds like at least you have 3 for sure who are good partners, and that some of those development people may also be partners with you in the campaign. What do you think? Are some of them potentially partners, or are they more champions?
Probably champions, and maybe a board member is another partner, right?
Okay, so you may have 4 partners then, and then champions. You may be able to come up with another 3 or 4 champions.
Sounds about right.
See, that's pretty good organization. Yes.
And it sounds like students, especially high school students who go to school with refugees, would be excellent champions.
They really would be. They would be great champions. So if you can reach out into the network and identify some of those people, you may not only be surprised about what you tap into in terms of those champions, but you may be able to get some boosters as well.
Our friends at the table just behind us with YouthLink have been big supporters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. So yeah, that starts to look good. If you've got 4 partners and 4 champions, if you were thinking about them, maybe you could average $5,000 per each one of those. That's 8 times 4 is, or 8 times 5 is $40,000. That's a pretty good start. And if you could get 25% more than that, that would give you a little over $50,000. And if you could get 3 or 4 times that, you could go over $100,000 with your campaign. But it's a lot of work. We've talked about a lot of work, but that's your potential if you do all that work. So it's kind of looks good there. So the next thing to be thinking about would be the platform you'd use. I think with that many people that are going to be working on your behalf, you do want to set up on a platform like Razoo or Fundly where you can have the teams set up. If you're working independently, like Jennifer Windrum did on the sock puppets, right? Then you can kind of use one of the sites like Start Some Good, like she did, where you don't have some of those features and they're easier to use. But you'll have teams. You want to have those individuals, and you want to create the context where other people can participate in that as well. What else? Let's see. Let's think through now. Let's go to organizing. Of course, you've got to get all those people committed, and then get them trained. So you make sure early on in the process you have a training session like this where you walk them through all the steps that are required, and help them start building their own lists, because you literally then need to go through. And in the assessment phase, we kind of identify how many friends we have. Then in the preparation phase, we actually have to go make that list. And so you're going to download your list off of Gmail. You're going to download your LinkedIn list and start putting this all into a spreadsheet where you have the name, email, and phone number for all of the people you're going to try and to reach. Then from there, then we're going to start writing the press release, write the emails. Remember how we talked about writing the emails, right? Write the email to your mother first.
Not to whom it may concern.
Yeah. Yeah. No BCC to all of your friends, right? So you get those emails, and it's good to do that well in advance when things are relatively calm, because it's tempting to sort of wait until the campaign starts, and then things are just crazy. You're trying to do your regular job, you're trying all of these things going along, and the days start ticking by, and pretty soon you're a week in, and you've got no money on your campaign. You got to do it all in advance. So next phase, let's talk about the media. Let's talk about media that would be interested in your campaign. So clearly, all of the local media are going to be interested in this. This is a great story for the media. So you want to be sure you're reaching out to the Deseret News and the Tribune, local radio, local television. And when you go to the television, be sure to tell them what you can offer. So tell them, we've got people that can come down to the studio. And we can bring some refugees with us, right, that can tell you their story of what it's been like to come to Utah and transition, the challenges and the opportunities. And so the media will say, oh, well, yeah, you bring me some refugees, and that's a story I can tell, right? So you help them understand what you can do that way. Make sure that you're reaching out to bloggers, that are covering these kinds of human issues.
Does anybody know Doug Fabrizio, like personally? Because I would love to get on there.
Yeah, I'm sure you can find someone that knows Doug.
He's a neighbor, and if you were to call him and explain what you're doing, he'd probably...
That'd be like personal life goal to get on Radio West.
Yeah, yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
he is an approachable guy. He's an approachable guy. I've met him. He wouldn't remember me, but I've met him. Great guy. So, yeah, you're going to go out to the media. You're going to prepare that press release. We talked about how to do that. And then daily, right? You're going to be on social media every day. One of the great things, I want to make sure we connect the dot. One of the reasons that you emphasize the traditional media so much is that you want to be able to tweet and Facebook post about the traditional media, right? You leverage that. So when you get KSL to do a story about you, you want to make sure then that everyone in your circle knows that KSL did the story. Because no one's actually watching the 10 o'clock news anymore, right? So I say no one. I mean, it's tens of thousands of people, but it's not hundreds of thousands of people watching the 10 o'clock news, and it's not very actionable. Right? When you watch the news, you can't click on the news. So you want to leverage that by getting it out on social media where it is very clickable, right? Because the story on the website, either their website or yours, is going to also have a link to your crowdfunding campaign. So you're going to be able to move people easily once it's on the web environment. So, any questions?
Does anybody have a lead on free office space? I'm up here and I have the floor. So.
Yes.
I might.
Okay. We could. I mean, we're all operating out of these guys' house, and so we really could use the space.
It's a very long meeting.
No. All righty. Well, thank you very much, Rebecca. That was great. Really. Give her a hand. Oh, I've got a book for you. That was so grueling. Make sure you have a little reward for. Yes, questions. We've got just a few minutes to do a couple of questions.
In your introduction, you said you're a CFO. I want to see the numbers real quick. If you just raised your $10,000, what did it cost? You're talking about the platform.
Yep.
You're talking about the video. You're talking about all this email time. What is the cost?
Well, let's talk about direct costs. If you use staff you're already paying and volunteers, I would say we can reasonably ignore time as a cost. Now, it's valuable time, don't get me wrong. Volunteer time is valuable. My heavens, which organization in here could survive without volunteers? There are probably a few, but not many. But let's look at the direct costs. The video can be absolutely free. If you want it to be free, if that's important to you, it can be free. We made a video in here. It took 2 minutes.